So you might think that some of the things psychologists study are kind of obvious. They're not things that are mind-blowingly cool. They study behavior. This is something, we all have our own intuitions about behavior. We all have our own ways that we think it works. And this is something that is maybe kind of a misconception about psychology, is that they're basically always confirming things that we already know about ourselves. In one kind of funny example, there's a recent study that studied the weekend effect. That's what they called it in the paper. And it was some researchers at University of Rochester, and what they concluded was that regardless of whatever job you have, people are happier on the weekend than they are during the week. Now this is something that your personal experience has probably confirmed over and over and over again. You might not think this is something that scientists need to study. While in this case, the kind of obvious hypothesis that the weekend is more fun than the not weekend, well, in this case it was proved to be true. There's a lot of cases throughout the history of psychology where this actually hasn't been true. And some of the coolest experiments are actually ones where people thought the things were obvious, but they actually turned out not to be. So this would be, like if your weekend effect experiment actually proved that people are happier during the work week, that would be the kind of magnitude of some of these experiments that disprove the hypothesis. That seems crazy, but it isn't true in this case, but in some cases it is. And as an example of this, let's think about, say your friend decides that he's going to design an experiment where he's going to see if people get an incredibly easy question wrong just because everyone else in the room is answering wrong as well. And the question he's going to ask, he's going to give 2 cards. The first card is going to have a line on it. The second card is going to have 3 lines on it of different lengths. Now one of them is the same length as the one on the other card. Oh, and these are labeled A, B, and C. And so he's going to ask a bunch of people in a room which line is the same as the line on the first card. This is like the most obvious, easy question ever. Like a 3-year-old can answer this. If you can see, you can answer this question. But what he's going to do is he's going to have everyone else in the room answer it wrong. So instead of the answer is obviously B, he's going to have them all say C. Let's see if our subject will also say C. Now this is a real experiment. And the guy who designed it, his name is Solomon Asch, he thought that people wouldn't do this because, again, they can see that B is clearly the answer. They're not going to get it wrong, even if they're pressured from other people. He thought that he would find that this was true. No, people got it wrong all the time. Only about 24% of the subjects didn't say the wrong answer on any. They would do maybe 3 trials each. 24% never said the wrong answer. Everyone else said the wrong answer at least once, because the effect of having all these people in a row saying the wrong answer over and over again was so powerful that they said the wrong answer. And this is something that if Solomon Asch had just said, oh yeah, it's obvious that people can see and they're not going to get this wrong, we would never know this. We would never know exactly how powerful people's peers are and how powerful peer pressure is. So that was, an experiment that was good that it got done, and it turned out not to be so obvious. That's a way in which psychology can be useful, because it's true of psychology, or what you see over and over again. While we think we have ideas of how we work and how our brains work, we don't actually have any idea a lot of the time. And there's another study that shows this perfectly, and that's a famous study about how people misattribute why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And in this particular study, the researchers decided to have men go out on a bridge, and they had 2 bridges, one of which was kind of shaky, like one of those wood, like Indiana Jones bridges. I think the plank's going to fall out in the middle. And one of them was like a really sturdy bridge, like it's not going anywhere. You're going to be fine if you're on this bridge. And then after, so the men would kind of cross this bridge, and afterward they would talk to a lovely lady who was posing as the researcher. And she would ask them a bunch of questions. She would ask them to kind of design scenarios based around certain questions, and then she would also, at the end, give them her phone number to see if they would want to call her if they had any questions about the experiment. But you know why they'd actually call her, because she's a beautiful woman. And what they found was that the ones who went on the shaky bridge in answering the questions and designing these stories that the questions were supposed to elicit, they were actually way more sexual than the ones who went across the not shaky bridge. And they were way more likely to call the researcher than if they went across the not shaky bridge. So shaky bridge equals like more sexual content in their answers, and it also equals calling the researcher. Not shaky bridge equals like none of that. And what the guys who designed this experiment basically concluded is that if you get scared, if you're walking across a shaky bridge and you're scared, your heart's racing, you're feeling kind of physiologically aroused in a nondescript way, they attributed this to the beautiful woman. And so they wanted to call because they thought that they were feeling all sort of out of whack and heart racing and stuff because of her, and not necessarily because of the shaky bridge. And so we really have no idea why we do what we do. And what psychology can do, in the Asch experiment and then in this experiment, is it can help us tease apart all of the reasons why we might do things and figure out what actually causes behavior and why we actually think certain things and what influences what. It really allows you to tease apart all these factors without our own intuition getting in the way. And that's really the value of psychology. You'll see throughout most of all the cool experiments, this is what they're doing. They're figuring out why we do what we do and not letting our own feelings and intuitions about that get in the way.